Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's Wrestlemania week. Yeah. What's up, boys and girls? What's up, nerds? What's up, ladies and gentlemen? What's up, true believers? It is I, the OG GM, broadcasting to you from a beautiful, sunny Monday morning here at Site B. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. It is the 27th day of March, 2023. It's Monday, which means it's time to take a look at all the tabletop role-playing game news stories that are going to shape the week to come. What are we going to be arguing about? What are we going to be excited about? What are we going to be upset about? Let's take a look as March comes to an end. But first, I'm going to take a sip of this coffee. Sponsored coffee. And you can get some of this coffee too if you just hit the link down below to my only remaining sponsor, Kuso Coffee. Thank you again, Kuso Coffee. You just hit the link, you get a discount, you get some coffee, and you support me. All right, we've got some story coming out from GaryCon and TSRCon. GaryCon was held over the week, last week and through the weekend, in the Gygax's backyard. Some of the games were even played in Gygax's home or at the Gygax Museum. Luke Gygax was there. Of course, Ernie Gygax was there. Of course, Kelsey Dion was there. Venger was there. Several other people we know were there. There's even a picture of Venger and Kelsey Dion standing together, which I guess sort of disproves all those people who have said, well, Venger hates gays, because Kelsey is gay. Happily married. And so, yeah, guess what? All you people who have talked crap about my friend Venger hating gays, you are totally wrong. We are very proud of our friend Kelsey and the Arcane Library. Shadow Dark RPG hit 1 million plus Kickstarter over the week. She found out about it while she was playing a role-playing game in Gygax's house. Huh? How about that, people who claim they know more about Gygax than anybody else? How many times have you played a role-playing game in Gygax's house with people who knew Gygax? And speaking of people who knew Gygax, the Gary Gygax Award for Excellence for the year went to longtime Gygax friend Zeb Cook. So, yeah, an amazing weekend. And that is the news coming from GaryCon. On the other side of the fence, Justin Lanasa had TSRCon, where I think from what we're hearing, about 100 people might have shown up. He forgot to get catering, and apparently he got himself in trouble yet again. But I don't like to talk about Mr. Lanasa because it always leads to ugliness I'd rather not involve myself in. If you want to find out more about the never-ending soap opera that is TSR 3.5 and Justin Lanasa, head on over to Tabletop Taproom, and they can get you up to date on what's going on. Now moving on to our friends at Wizards of the Coast. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. on the D&D channel, they will be doing the live stream, pre-recorded now we're finding out, hosted by Ginny Darling and Iffy Nawadine. I've heard good things about Iffy Nawadine. I've heard he's actually very funny and very talented. So, you know, and Gina Darling, of course. Gina Darling is a cosplay model who once said, oops, my titties fell out. So, yeah, whatever, take that, whatever. So they're going to be announcing all the new show stuff that's coming out for Wizards of the Coast for the week, month, year. This is going to be all the same stuff that all those Twitch and YouTubers that are getting invited to that top secret meeting are going to see. So we get to see it for free. And then Bob Worldbuilder and all those other people are going to go to this top secret meeting and go, oh, wait, you just showed the same thing that we were supposed to see exclusively. And Wizards of the Coast is going to go, oh, did we? No, you misunderstood that. We didn't say exclusively. We just said we were inviting you to see it. So if you have any interest in whatsoever of what Wizards of the Coast is planning to doing for the remainder of April, May, June, this is your chance to find out, if you even care. And speaking of Wizards of Coast, there is another survey launch up, this time for Druids and Paladins. The playtest for 1D&D for Druids and Paladins have gone up. You can go to the survey, take the survey, let Wizards of the Coast know what you think of the changes to the Druid class and the Paladin class. I'm sure they nerfed the out of the Paladin class. What do you think of the new druid that's getting a lot of negative responses because they tried to make the new druid build to represent how the tiefling druid in the movie is able to change into an owlbear? So they kowtowed. They kowtowed to all the people who said, it's not fair, she can turn into an owlbear and my druid can't. Instead of Wizards of the Coast just saying, look, we put it in the movie because we thought it was cool. If you need an explanation, it's magic, okay? She had a magic item or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's cool. It doesn't affect the real game at all. Instead, they went, fine, we hear you crying, so we're going to change druid so you can have an owlbear shape-changing druid, okay? And then people went, no, it's still not fair. And Wizards of the Coast went, well, God, we just can't win with you guys, can we? I don't know why they even keep trying. We have got our sales report for fall quarter 2022. No surprise that in 2022, in the fall, so October, November, D&D was the number one sellers. And the second number one seller was Pathfinder. We've already gone over this list last week and how lazy I thought the list was, because the guy who just doesn't look like did much of anything at all in regards to which version of Pathfinder. Pathfinder First E or Pathfinder Second E? Which one sold number 2? Which D&D products were the number one selling products for fall quarter 2022? Just all of D&D? Are you counting all the Dungeons & Dragons toys and add-ons and supplements? Because then, yeah, if you count everything that came out D&D adjacent and D&D in, September, October, November, then of course it's number one. If you're just counting actual D&D product that came out September, October, November, then are you sure it's number one? Because the sales were pretty awful. And then the guy says number 2 is Pathfinder. And you're like, well, which one? Pathfinder First Edition, Pathfinder Second Edition? Is there one specific adventure? Or just, you're like, oh, well, Pathfinder stuff sold. Then he goes on to say the third number one selling product during fall quarter was 5e OGL products. Doesn't say which one. Just says 5e OGL product. Now, 5e, third-party 5e products and OGL products are different. Now, the third-party 5e products use the OGL, but they are specifically designed to be used with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. But there are plenty of OGL products out there that have nothing to do with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So, example, Kobold Press makes 5e product using the OGL, or they did in 2022 at this point in time. So that would count as 5e third-party product that was made using the OGL. But Green Ronin makes Mutants and Masterminds product, which uses the OGL, but is not 5e. So, person who made this very lazy list at ICV2, what do you mean by 5e OGL products? Are you saying the third-party 5e products that Kobold Press released were the number 3 selling? Are you just saying every OGL thing that sold during that month was the number 3 selling sold thing? Because a lot of stuff during that time falls under OGL. And in fact, if I'm counting everything, there might have been more OGL products from September, October, November than there were D&D products. Because you know how much stuff Wizards of the Coast released last year at September, October, November? One thing. And then moving on, he's got list number 4 as Vampire. He doesn't say which version is Vampire. He just says vampires. And number 5 was Transformers, the role-playing game. So that's the one thing on the list that is specific. So the number 5 selling tabletop role-playing game, September, October, November 2022, was the Transformers role-playing game from Renegade Press. But then the guy goes on to say that Vampire the Masquerade was a Wizards of the Coast product. No, it's not. It's not a Wizards of the Coast product. Moving on, free RPG day is coming up, June 24th. We're going to have a ton of free RPGs. If you are lucky enough to find the one gaming store in the entire United States that has the budget to pay for this, you can go and get some free crap. We already talked about this in today's bundles. Modifius has released pretty much an entire role-playing game called Blood and Doom. It is another dark role-playing game, Chronicles of Darkness, Dark World, everything dark, because that's just what the people want to play these days. I don't, but apparently everybody else does. So it's very Robert E. Howard influence. 500 plus pages of stuff for free before they kickstart it. And we talked about this when we talked about the Kelsey Dion kickstart versus the Kelsey Dion Shadow Dark RPG review copy that was given to a couple of people at the beginning of the Kickstarter, and the Shadow Dark RPG. So just because this is a 500-page role-playing game that you're getting now, don't forget that during the Kickstarter, things will be added and changed. So by the time of the end of the Kickstarter, what you receive then might be completely different than this now. But still, it's free. So, I mean, how can you say no? And in my favorite story of the week, Chaosium has announced that they're going to be releasing the updated core rulebook for basic role-playing, the Universal Game Engine, the system many people consider to be the best tabletop role-playing game in the world. This is, of course, the tabletop role-playing game, Chaosium's D100 system that gives us, amongst other things, Call of Cthulhu. So we do not know if this is going to be reflecting the current version of the rules as seen in the most recent edition of Call of Cthulhu, brand new rules, or whatever. We just know that they are releasing it, the PDF, next month, and the hardcover later this year. So if you are a fan of the Chaosium basic role-playing D100 system, the system that many consider the best role-playing system ever written, they are releasing a new version, and it's going to be under the ORC, the Open RPG Creative License, or ORC, even though ORCL does not spell ORC, it spells Oracle, from Paizo, even though we have seen no updates on what's going on with the ORC since January. The last thing we heard was it was at the lawyers. So, of course, yeah, the minute that word enters any conversation, you're like, and time ground to a halt, especially it's lawyers, plural. But there have not been any updates on what's going on with the ORC, and yet Chaosium feels confident enough to release this new system under the ORC, even though they don't have to, because they weren't affected by the January OGL nonsense in any way, shape, or form. I double-checked my copy of Call of Cthulhu and my copy of Basic Role-Playing. The OGL isn't in there. So I guess they're feeling that this will protect them going forward because they don't feel protected enough by the fact that their system is already protected and they can do whatever they want with it because it's their system and it's not affected by the OGL. Or, well, we don't know why. We don't know why. Somebody, just because maybe the ORC will give them better creative license and allow people to make stuff for basic role-playing in a more open, honest, and financially gainful way than they could before for people who made stuff using basic role-playing. Or maybe they didn't feel that they didn't have a creative license, so they want to use the ORCL, even though the ORCL isn't finished. Yeah, I'm confused too, but hey, it's, any chance to rub salt in the wounds of people who don't think basic role-playing is a great system, I will do because I'm petty and vindictive. But that's it. That's all the tabletop role-playing game news is that will shape the week. Oh, there is one more. There's this movie coming out, in case you haven't heard. April 1st will be the official release date of Honor Amongst Thieves, the first ever Dungeons & Dragons film, if you don't count the 2000 Dungeons & Dragons film, the 2 sequels to the Dungeons & Dragons film, any of the Dungeons & Dragons animated films, or the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. This is the first Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. Many people are saying it's going to be the best Dungeons & Dragons movie ever made that has Chris Pine in it, because Chris Pine can save everything. The reviews are coming out, and the reviews are generally, it's okay. It's nothing I've ever seen, haven't seen 100 times before, but it's fine. It's a good summer movie. Why the F are you releasing it on April 1st? If there's one day you should never put a movie out in a building that people can vandalize, it's probably that day. but it's coming out April 1st because reasons. And one of the stories that came out is apparently there is a not so subtle Easter egg featuring the kids from the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, or at least characters that look surprisingly like the characters from the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, which leads into a whole other layer of ugliness that I'm not going to get into. But spoilers, at the end of the scene, the kids die. I have been told by 3 different individuals who saw the movie already, that there is no ifs, ands, or buts. The kids are slaughtered at the end of the scene that they feature in, which I guess is just Hasbro and the directors telling us once again, F you to all the people who love D&D. Much like Thaco the Clown was an F you, or at least they hoped it would be. This is again, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, saying, hey, we know how much you love these characters. We know how much you were invested in that 80s cartoon. We know how much you always wanted to know what happened at the end. Well, F you, they die. They're eaten by monsters. Ha, 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 ha. They never go home. Of course, the kids aren't in the Forgotten Realms in the cartoon. They're in a completely different world. And it has been said by the creator, the final fate of all the kids, but I guess that doesn't count. So spoilers again, if you were a fan of the kids in the film and you've always wondered what happened to them and you've always loved them as a representation of D&D and how much Hasbro Wizards of the Coast has invented in that part of the Dungeons and Dragons lore, well, screw you, kids. You get killed in the movie. At least that's what I've been told. Am I wrong? Has anybody else seen the movie? Yeah. It's definitely the greatest D&D movie with the name D&D in it that has Chris Pine in it. We will see what the final fate of this movie is by the end of the first week of April. Right now, it looks like it's going to be okay. If you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you've seen Pirates of the Caribbean, you've seen this movie. Is this movie going to generate a lot of new people coming to play D&D? No, it's not. But you can watch DM Bloodworth talk about that topic. Link down below. So if you want to hear what's going on with Justin Lanasa and TSR 3.5, check out Tabletop Taproom. Link down below. If you want to hear about what's going on with the D&D movie, go over to DM Bloodworth. Link down below. And if you want to support the nonsense that is coming out of my mouth and get your own sponsored coffee, coffee, go to the links down below. Check out my sponsor, or you could go to my sponsor, Big Geek Emporium, and buy my merch, which I still need to talk about in a video coming up. That's all the tabletop role-playing game news. What stories are interesting you? What are your predictions for the week and the direction the hobby's going to go as we get closer and closer to the movie? And most importantly, what are your predictions for Wrestlemania? Bow, 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 bow. Till next time, I've been the OG GM. Please take a moment to like, share, subscribe. Help me hit 1,300 subs by the end of the month and 2,000 subs by the end of the year. And of course, buy my merch. Till next time, see ya.